Yep.
First thing. That? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, we got the CRC Audit Committee. And the first thing on the agenda would be the draft minutes from February 4th, 2025. We need a motion and a second to approve.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All set. Approved. Next, we have the Audit Committee report. Mike, is there anything special on it?
We have with us Nicole Overbaugh from UHY to go over our 2024 audited financial statement and supplementary information. Nicole?
So the audit for CRC was very straightforward. As you know, there really isn't any activity for 2024. So we have a clean, unmodified audit opinion, which is what you would expect. The CEDC gave their contribution for $5,000, which basically paid for the operating expenses of the organization. And they were able to recognize an increase in that position of $531 for the year. Really nothing else to draw your attention to in the audited financial statements. Like I said, nothing unusual this year. And then the second document in the packet is just our required communication letter, which again is all just standard language. We had no adjustments, no past adjustments as a result of that.
Thank you. The most pertinent part of the report is in note 1 under uncertainty. If the corporation fails to generate revenue in the future, in part by the support of related parties, it will either need to curtail operations or seek additional sources of cash flow, the outcome of which is currently uncertain.
So we basically assume that CEDC is going to continue to make that $5,000 contribution in order to sustain the organization, because without that, the organization wouldn't have enough money to pay its expenses.
And for the benefit of the board, as you know, CRCs were set up after it was determined that IDAs could not do tax exempt bonds for not-for-profits. The last group to use the CRC was the hospital, and those bonds have been paid off. We do have a number of not-for-profit organizations that are contemplating large capital projects. You'd hate to have it, you'd hate to dissolve this, make the decision to dissolve it, and then have one of them come to us and ask to use the vehicle to finance the project. At the same time, after 10 years, if there was no project for 10 years and you CEDC spent $50,000 over those 10 years to keep it alive, but it's a gamble. So you have to know when to fold them, walk away, and run it. For now, we're going to keep it alive. Thank you.
Okay. Board, got any questions on it? Okay, what we're gonna need is a motion and a second to accept the audit financials and related correspondence.
Needs a motion and a second. Oh, second. Oh, to accept the motion.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Sorry about this. We got a little delay here, but is there any public comments? If there's no public comments, we're gonna need a motion, a second to close the audit committee.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Moving right along, let me change my screen here. We got the CRC full board agenda. First thing up would be the draft minutes for February 4th, 2025. We need a motion and a second to accept those.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Next thing we have is the treasurer's report, Mike.
Yes, the balance sheet shows $345 in assets and liability equity. We did have the insurance bill come in. We are going to make the grant from CEDC at the end of the month when the CEDC board approves it. And then we'll have sufficient funds to pay for the audit and the other minor administrative expenses that the entity incurs during the course of the year.
Good.
The end of
Treasurer's report. None. I need a motion to accept it. And motion and a second to accept the treasurer's report.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Next, we have the audit committee report, which we just basically went over.
the committee, Mr. Chairman, recommended the approval of the audit as presented.
Okay, so we will need a motion and a second to accept the audit financial.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Is there any public comment? No public comment. We would need a motion and a second to close the CRC full board meeting.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor? So moved. Okay. Next. We got the IDA board. That IDA
IDA audit committee.
audit committee. Need a motion and a second, open the meeting.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so moved. So
The first, Chairman, is the presentation of the audit and related correspondence. Again, we welcome Nicole Overbaugh from UHY to make the presentation.
That's right. So the audit for the IDA went as planned, nothing unexpected, nothing unusual this year. We have an unmodified, clean audit opinion, which is what you would expect. We do have an emphasis of matter similar to the CRC, where we say, basically that you have operated in excess of expenditures in excess of revenues in recent years, and if you continue to experience those same results, you may have an issue sustaining the organization in the future. So there's just an emphasis there, drawing your attention to that fact. The results for the year were there was an increase in your net position of $9,483. And the most important thing to point out on the statement of net position is that you still do owe the CEDC $25,000 at the end of the year for the 2 years of administrative fees. So IDA hasn't paid CEDC for 2023 or 2024's admin fees. So the intention would be that would be paid in 2025. Nothing really unusual to point out in the footnotes. The required communication letter is our standard language again. We have no adjustments, no past adjustments, nothing unusual in that letter to put your attention to. Any questions?
No questions? Mike, got anything you wanted to add to that?
Again, I want to thank Nicole and her team at UHY for their work on the audit. It was a pleasure again to work with them and to have a clean audit. And I do feel that when we get into the IDA meeting, you'll see that there are projects on the horizon that will again generate fees that will not only clear your open payables to CEDC, but provide funding for future IDA efforts going forward.
Okay, no further questions. We need a motion to accept the audit report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we need a motion to accept that we have the draft minutes from February 4th, 2025. Need a motion and a second to accept.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we got the administrative director's report.
What, in the,
Just gotta close that.
We have to close the audit.
we have to close the audit committee meeting, Lisa says.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me. I skipped the screen. Okay,
Thank you.
so we're gonna, the motion and accept, second to accept, to close the meeting.
Motion.
Yeah. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry,
A little delay.
I skipped the screen. I was in the full board agenda. So now we're gonna open the full board meeting. And we had 2024 audit related correspondence, which I believe you
Mr.
did.
Chairman, recommends that the board approve the recommended audit as presented.
So we would need a motion and a second to accept the audit.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we had the draft minutes from February 4th, 2025. Need a motion and a second to accept.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Now we have the administrative director's report.
Nicole, you're welcome to stay, or you can get back to work.
I'm sure you'd like me to get back.
Go bill another client. Thank you
you,
again,
everyone.
and thank your team
Yeah.
for their efforts on CEDC and CRC.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've had a number of potential projects that we have been working on. We still have an open application from Labella's. I know they're working on the planning board issues. We have the Summit project in Philmont. It's to take the old mill up on the pond and turn it into a event space. We have a gentleman
Space.
event. Event. We have a potential senior housing project in Livingston. It would be what we might previously known as a adult home. Wouldn't be a nursing home. It wouldn't really be assisted living, but it would be a concept that's been utilized in Texas and in California. We have the housing project, the apartment project in Greenport that originally was brought to us by Redburn Development. We have interest from Baxter Development and Kempner Realty. Baxter is the construction company from Poughkeepsie that's doing the project for Galvin next door. Kempner is a White Plains-based real estate development firm. They have an option on the property. They've had preliminary conversations with us about IDA financing, and they're going to meet with the supervisor this week and begin the planning board process. Paul Cascagno is attempting to revive the project in Valatia, which was a 51-unit rental property, single-family home in a association community. We've had contact from a developer regarding the Red Street Mill in Valatia. I'm sorry, River Street Mill in Valatia. It had been proposed by a developer out of Troy who abandoned the idea, but another developer has picked up the units in terms of picked up the plans for, is it 29 units?
I think it's 29.
29 units of senior housing.
Is that the old Wiley mill?
Yes.
We also have the Harpist project in the Commerce Center, and we have a resolution for you. As you recall, Paul Harpist purchased a property several years ago in the Commerce Center. They have paid off their penalty mortgage. We did give them an extension during COVID. In going to the planning board in connection with the parcel, the project, it was determined that turning radiuses and other restrictions on lot lines and setbacks were such that in order for him to build what he had planned, he needed an additional acre of land. For whatever reason, there was just about exactly an acre between his parcel and the bio company parcel. And we have entered into an agreement that you have authorized to sell the parcel that the county had transferred to the IDA to Mr. Harpus, so he could expand the site so that they could build what was planned and still meet the local zoning. We have a resolution that the IDA is authorized to sell a portion of the real property known as 8 Bender Boulevard in the town of Claverick for the sum of $50,000 to HRI Holding LLC. That is the entity that he set up for the new development. When we looked at this, we paid $240,000 for the 6-acre parcel up on Route 9H, and that would come out to $40,000 an acre. So we felt that the $50,000 an acre within the park, was a fair market value. We did get an appraisal letter. We did send all of this to the ABO last fall when this first came up. The purpose of this resolution really is to reaffirm action already taken by the board, but to satisfy the title company in terms of being able to attest to the ownership of the property and the proper transfer from the IDA, from the county to the IDA to the purchaser. So if there's no objection, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that a motion be introduced, and then we could have any discussion that the board would like.
Yeah, and really just to finish what Mike said, you already voted to sell it. So in connection with the closing, the title company just always requires a resolution from this board affirming the contract that was sold and authorizing Kathy to sign on behalf of the organization. So that's what we're looking for today in terms of a motion and a second to approve that.
Okay, so we need a motion and a second to do what Andy just said. And
I'll make a motion.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Mike, I know we went over this before, but did we put a restriction on him for building too? I mean, as far as timeline?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. If he doesn't build, I think within 2 years, there's a penalty.
There's penalty mortgage.
The only other thing, Mr. Chairman, is, we are monitoring the fact that the Amador project is before the Claverick Planning Board, Route 9H and 66. They are working with the county and planning department or planning board as well as DOT on access off 9H and 66. And we're also continuing discussions with a gentleman by the name of John Colby, who owns a 38-acre parcel at the corner of 66 and Gaybower Road. He has been looking at this parcel as a possible commerce park or a single-family housing development. There's a stream that kind of runs through the center of it. I'm encouraging him to do a private development of a business park because we're out of sites across the street at the county park. But again, whether, depending on how he proceeds, there may be an interest in IDA involvement. As you can see, I believe 2 to 3 of these projects will close in 2025. I can't tell you which ones I think they are, although I have some ideas. But certainly the project in Greenport, the Baxter Kempner project, the Summit project in Philmont, and possibly the River Street project in relation. Also, there is a potential hotel project in Greenport I never get the guy's name. He was a veterinarian, doctor going down to 23 on the third.
Ritter. Dr. Ritter.
The Dr. Ritter property. You know, it has been in discussion for some time, but I understand from their engineer that they're still evaluating the project, and it could very well go forward. It would be an upscale hotel looking out over the vista, and be an interesting project if it went forward. The Wick Hotel, as you know, the reason we had positive cash flow this year was because of the fee that the Wick paid in connection when it was sold from Redburn to Ben Fain, because the agency agreed to assign the remaining 3 years of benefit under the current IDA financing, including the pilot. They are looking at doing an expansion to the Wick. You'll remember the county IDA financed that 7 years ago at the request of the city IDA, because the city IDA had not been active at that point. At this point, if the developer decides to proceed with an expansion of the WIC, it would go back to the city IDA. Just so that if you hear about this and you hear it at the city IDA, I wanted you to be aware that it would not impact the remaining 2 years on the county IDA project, but it would be a separate project for an expansion. Other than that, I have nothing to report. If there are any questions, I'm happy to respond.
Just a little bit of refresher on the Amador project. What's his plans back there, Mike?
It was housing and some mixed use commercial office and retail.
Okay.
It's going to be a small office building, and there would be some, service, retail, bank, dry cleaner,
Okay.
small deli, restaurant type of thing. But, again, at one point it was going to be 750 apartment units, but I think that was an effort to get a sense from the community as to what the scale they were interested in. I don't have off the top of my head what exactly those units, how many units he's proposing at this point. I do think one of the issues we're going to have to look at, and we're doing research on this at other communities, and that's what type of pilot the agency would be willing to provide to a housing project. Right now, it would qualify if the agency approved it for the 485B uniform pilot policy, which, as you know, is 50% reduction in taxes the first year down to 0% reduction in year 10. Depending on the type of housing development, whether it's low income housing, Section 8 type project, or whether it's, the very high end luxury garden apartment complex. There's certainly, based on the reports that we've done and the work that Chris Brown is doing as our housing coordinator here at CDC, and the reports from groups like Patterns for Progress, there's a need for housing across that full spectrum and everything in between. The idea of providing expanded IDA benefits to a low-income housing project, or a project that agrees to reserve a certain number of units up to 20% for people making 130% of median income, which in Columbia County is about $110,000 a year household income, is very common throughout the region. There are counties recognizing that there's a need for housing across the full continuum, such that there's also deviations from uniform policies similar to ours to give a greater benefit to projects that are perceived to be more upscale. We're going to be able to provide you at the next meeting a report on what is being done in other counties. So that you can evaluate whether you feel the housing crisis in the county is such that you might be willing to provide incentives that go beyond the uniform pilot policy across to projects that are really market rate. And I think that you know, getting a look at what's being done in Dutchess, Ulster, Saratoga, Montgomery, we kind of look at Montgomery County is about our size, about our median income. Chris, what is the current census data median income for the county?
For us?
For a family of two?
About 85,000.
So, think about that, two people working, each making less than $45,000 a year, or one making more and one making less. So it's still, it sounds like a lot when you start to think of, our own situations, what it costs to live. And when you look at the fact that we updated our data and it held pretty consistent over 2020 through 2024, 35% of the single family homes sold to people outside the county. And the bulk of those were from the New York City metropolitan area. 62 to 65% are people moving from Clavert to Ghent to Hudson to back to Clavert. So, and the median sale price went from 240,000 in 2019 to over 500 now, Chris?
475 is where we at.
Yeah. So, if you don't have a place to live here and you want to work and live here, you really can't. And again, when we were looking at businesses looking at the Flanders property, not only are there issues, as I think I reported previously, about the fact that the owner is a real estate investment trust in Chicago, who's being paid by Flanders, and there's 7 years left on the lease, so there's no real incentive for them to put money in the building or lease it to someone else. The new tenant doesn't want to come in and do the fit up and find out that at the end of the 7th year, they're going to get hit with a big rent increase. So the bigger question they ask is, now, of course, you can guarantee 120 workers here on day one, right? And so what we did is we did a radius report that you put a pin at the location and you go out 5, 10, 30 miles. And I said, of course, there's 280,000 people that live within 30 miles of here. I'm sure we could get 120 to work here, but it's going to be difficult. So, I do think from a policy standpoint, we will be providing you with information on, because I don't think you want to do each project as a one-off. I think you really want to have a policy, so when the developer comes in, they're not trying to jockey the agency each and every time. But there's an agreement as to what you're willing to approve if you want to approve the project itself. Thank you,
Mike,
Mr. Chairman.
yeah, question on that. Maybe Chris has got these notes. Or market rate in the county. Has anybody done a survey on that of what market rate is for one bedroom?
What would you pay for a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom?
For apartments. So I guess this may have a little editorializing seeping into it. Market rate's a marketing term. There isn't really a definition of market rate. I can tell you what the median available rent is. It's about $1,900 for 1 bedrooms and $2,200 for 2 bedrooms. The market rate is, it's not really, it's kind of like middle class. There's no real definition.
Well, that leads up to my next question. What's middle class income to afford those?
What's the median income for one person?
Well, for a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, what is an income that somebody would have to have?
Well, we did
So what
that.
I say was 1,900. You'd have to make, to not be spending more than 30% of your income on the average 1-bedroom, you'd have to make about $86,000
Household.
household income. Yeah.
You said the median income in the county is 45.
Median income is about 80, but that's household income. So that assumes 2 people.
That's 80. Okay. No, that was, Mike, one other question. Out of those 9 projects we were talking, how many of them you think are realistic? I know you said 2 or 3 this year, but.
I think this year, 3. You know, I do think the housing projects will go faster. I just pulled up the Falls. 1 to 2 bedrooms. 1 bedroom is 1975 and a 2-bedroom is 2870. You know, that's a $300,000 mortgage payment.
Yeah.
Even at 6%, 6 or 7%. Now you don't have taxes and insurance. We did an analysis that at median income for the county, you could afford you can only afford $175,000 house at current interest rates, and there aren't any.
With all the other expenses baked in,
Yeah, insurance, taxes,
utilities.
So, you know, and again, you know, the Falls is perceived as a higher end product in the county, you know, compared to Jocelyn Court or Columbia Gardens, or Greenport Gardens, is it? Greenport Gardens. So, you know, I do think that, and there's a theory that majority of the people who moved to the Falls sold their single family homes and moved there and probably have a place somewhere else. And that opened up their homes for people to move up. And so the idea of building higher end housing, whether rental or ownership, condo or single family, moves the whole continuum up because you're freeing people up who could afford more, but because there's no inventory, they can't buy up. And if they could, then it makes more housing available for everyone who could afford a little more and wants a little more. And then it allows you to provide housing for lower income as you move people out of the units that they're already in. So, you know, I do think there's no real solution to this housing problem at the scope and numbers that we have, but you know, if you can do 150 here and 150 there, do we have a number as to what we think would solve?
Would solve it? No.
No.
No, because if you solve it locally, you're just going to import people from the region, right? I mean, that if for every affordable unit you create, there's somebody out there who wants to move into it, who will travel X amount of miles to move to your community. So yeah, I don't know if there's an upper number. The goal that we have in mind, so the governor's office, as part of the pro-housing community, sets out a goal that they want each community to hit. For the entire county, we would have to hit, I think it's just about 102 units each year, just to hit the governor's minimum goal, which isn't, 102 is pretty doable. I mean, that's a couple of projects in Hudson, right? Then a few scattered ones throughout the county. And they're not even projects. Sometimes that's just someone building a house.
We would count on how many B&Bs are in Columbia County.
1,162-ish.
And how many in the city? You gave me that number.
131 active, but there are a lot of inactive listings right now that are about to come online because we start to trend up in like mid-May, late May, once it starts to get a little nicer.
And, you know, we'll have a much better count on that now that the county is imposing a tax on Airbnbs, because you'll have to register. And I'm sure if you don't register, someone's gonna point it out to somebody. Right now, they're just gathering this data from the consultant that the county has hired to collect the funds based on running, looking at what's on the website.
My nephew just bought a house in an hour outside of Boise, Idaho. 2,600 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 3 garages. He's a pilot. But none of the houses in the development have cellars. It's all crawl space.
Okay.
But 468. That was amazing to me.
Yeah.
468. That they could build that out there for that.
There is a project in Orange County that I'm familiar with, Chris and I have been talking about. A landowner donated 30 acres. And they're going to build 28 single-family homes. They're going to be 16 to 1,800 square feet. Going to cost about $450,000 a piece to build them with infrastructure and utility, water and sewer expansion. But because there's a state grant of $5 million, they're going to be able to sell them to first-time home buyers for $250,000. And
Which is still pretty high for first time home buyers.
yeah, well, if you go back to our model, both people in the household have to make $75,000.
Yeah.
And, you know, and again, you know, but at the same time, it's,
Actually, I will say probably for that product, there's home buyer assistance, first time home buyer assistance, that I think could knock 80,000 off of that. So if they're buying for 170, that's actually pretty good. We should steal that idea.
well, we need to find a site.
We need to find a site.
That, and obviously our issue is the lack of, we only have 6 sewer districts. And you can't build 28 houses in on the same property without a leach field that's big enough to. And there has been work done, and Adam Bosch from Patterns for Progress was involved in this when he worked for the City of New York Water Supply. But of doing a common septic or put 2 or 3 or 4 houses on the same septic. And that may work in one of these models. But again, no matter what you build is going to be more costly than the people at the lowest end of the income chart need. And so, and you know, there in Hudson, there's the Hudson IDA is considering another 75 units from Galvin to make a building across the street look alike to the one they're building out here now. This is 65 units. They'll be ready in July or August. They do have 20% of the units are income restricted. The city IDA is looking to finance the purchase and renovation of Providence Hall and Schuyler Court, which is 150 units combined down off 2nd Street. And they would remain Section 8 projects for the next 30 years if the project goes through. But again, you know, their concern at the city is we can't put all of the low-income housing in the city. And they want to see some of it in some of the towns. But then when you look at the towns, there are only 6 that have water, sewer, gas, electric, and broadband at the same location. There's a potential project in Stockport, and there is sewer access there. There's no public water.
There's water.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, that's in front of the planning board this Thursday night, actually. It was a planned development district in Stockport. It was a project from, I think, 2010-ish, right around then. It's actually commemorated in Stockport zoning code as the Columbia Springs Planned Development District. It's 120 acres. Initially, it was going to be 101 homes, 76 or 75 single family and 36 townhomes. So whatever that is, 121. But it's on this really big parcel that's bisected by the Empire State Rail Trail, so a significant portion of it would be placed in a conservation easement. It just went away. The guy that is in front of the planning board on Thursday night, that developer is from the city. He basically is picking up essentially the same project back to the town.
By the water tower there,
Right by the water tower. Yeah, it's just north of the water tower.
Okay.
And there's a site in Livingston that's for sale, the old Hudson camp, or what was it called?
Yes, and he sent me, because I couldn't find the listing yesterday, but he emailed it to me last night.
It's it's across from the state police barracks, and they were going to put a athletic, some type of a baseball soccer camp there or something.
Burke St. John.
St. John's?
Burke St.
Across
John.
from,
I don't know that any of you were on there.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's 145 acres. He's got it up for 2.75, but there's this old farmhouse with a really nice modernized barn on it. You can break that piece off and sell that for like $650, bring it down to about 2.
But apparently there was planning board approval at one time. I don't know if it's still, it would probably have to be revisited,
And it has some septic.
but it had planned for a large septic field. And, you know, then we go to some of the smaller communities and, you know, we don't want, a 25 or 50 or 75 unit apartment house. It'll change the character of our community. So, something for everyone,
I'm sorry, the Alvarez's had, and their trailer,
something for everyone.
not really trailer park, the double wides. They're gonna put 92 units in there, and he put his own, like septic system, not septic, he put his own, little retention
Plant. And
system in.
where is this? Where's this, Kathy?
Alvarez's down in Livingston, and they did it for 92 units. So I could ask them
Yeah,
how,
and there is funding for, manufactured housing, right, Chris?
And there are a few places throughout the county that have their own private wastewater systems, right? I just visited Camp Hill Ghent last week. They've got private wastewater treatment right on site. So there's a thing that you could do. It's just, you know, you can get away with it at places like trailer parks and Camp Hill Ghent because you know there's a steady stream of income that will cover the maintenance. If you're just building a development and then walking away, that's a little bit different.
I think that, Amador's project has a package,
believe so.
plan. So. Or they can tap into the county's,
well, he could tap into the right there.
sewer district. All very interesting, but you're going to have housing come before you soon.
Okay.
All right, so moving on, we got the treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report, Mr. Chairman, we have not had any significant activity, since, our previous meeting. As the auditor, indicated, we did have a positive, year. And since the first of the year, we've accrued the fee to CDC, as agreed, and we've paid the insurance. And, our next, expense will be the audit. So we're steady as we go, with minimal expenses. All of the pilot payments for the county IDA have been paid as of today, and will be distributed to the respective taxing jurisdictions. That's Clock Estates and the WIC, right?
And then I'm sending out bills for them, for the IDA this month, so we can get our administration fees back.
Right.
So that's about $3,000 for me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, no other questions, I'll need a motion a second to accept the treasurer's report.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Any public comment? If not, we need a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, everybody. I'm a distance away. I don't know, it's hard hearing, but.
Have fun, Captain.
Have fun.
Enjoy.